All right, y'all. Well, so just reflecting a little bit on our gospel reading this morning, you'll notice this is a parable, a couple of parables from Jesus. And all of my St. Stephen's regulars, you'll find this familiar when I say this, but whenever Jesus gives us a parable, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to be put inside the story. These parables, sometimes they're strange stories. They're hard to understand what Jesus is trying to teach. The disciples never understand what he's saying. But the key is to put yourself in the story of the parable, in the characters, experiencing the story. And what you experience, putting yourself in that story, that what you learn from that is the lesson Jesus is trying to teach. That's my secret trick to parables. I know St. Stephen's folks, you hear me say that all the time. But put ourselves in the story. Obviously, it's really logical to put ourselves in the place of being the sheep. We're Jesus' flock, of course. We're the sheep of God following him. And while we're the sheep in this story, where is Jesus in here? At first, as we expect, we see Jesus as the shepherd in the first parable. And that makes sense. He's nurturing us, he's leading us, he's protecting us and taking care of us. He calls himself the good shepherd. We expect Jesus to be the shepherd. The second parable, though, gets a little strange. All of a sudden, he's not the shepherd leading us and guiding us. He's not inside the pasture, right? He's not where we, the sheep, we want to be in the pasture where it's safe and we're protected and nurtured and there's good food to eat. He's not the pasture, right? He's not in the pasture as some kind of reward. What does he say he is? He says he's the gate. He says he's the gate. And my mind goes, who role plays a gate? And I think of like A Midsummer Night's Dream with Snout the Tinker, who plays the wall in the play. And it's a strange thing for Jesus to say that he's the gate, especially when, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes when I think about gates, I think about barrier. I think about a gate as a barrier, like it's something that's shut with bars, and usually it's locked, where you need a key to get in, or there's a gatekeeper, right? Gatekeepers whose job it is to stand at the gate and keep people out who don't belong, keep out the riffraff. So it sounds isolating or estranging for Jesus as a gate at first. A lot of us, we're familiar with the story of Jesus saying, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one gets to the Father but through me. And that could sound, if you don't know what Jesus means, could very much sound like Jesus being a gatekeeper, or just a gate, keeping people separated and out who don't belong. I want to suggest there's a different way of looking at it, though. There's a different way of looking at it. When we think about us as the sheep and wanting to be in the pasture, and what is the barrier to us being where we want to be, to where God is calling us to be in the pasture? Well, the barrier is the fence. The barrier is not the gate. The barrier is the fence. That's what's keeping us out. The gate is the way in. The gate is actually invitation. It's the opening to get to where we want to be. And so I think about who Jesus says when he says, I'm the gate. And he tells us, all I want you to do is just believe me. Believe me when I tell you. All I want you to do is love God, love each other. I am the gate. Love God, love each other. If you do that, if you believe in me and you come to me, you will find there's the opening to get into the pasture. Far be it from Jesus saying, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. Far from that being something that's about trying to keep people out. It's about trying to invite people in, saying, look, the opening is over here. Come to me. I'm pointing the way. The opening to get in to where you want to be is right here. It's through loving God, loving each other. Here it is. Don't think about the gate in this story as being closed gate with bars and a guard, but think about it as an open door, an open gate, letting us in. And all we need to do is come to it. So when you put yourself in the parable now as the sheep, wanting to be in the pasture, and you think about, if loving God and loving each other, if that's the way into the pasture, and we're bumping into the fence, right? The fence of indifference or hatred or prejudice or jealousy or all of the things that we bump into that we find, we're not getting into the pasture because we're just bumping into this, which is the fence. And we want to be the sheep who follow over to the open gate and get into the pasture. So all of a sudden that parable makes perfect sense. And it's funny how all you need to do is put yourself into the story. We hope that the disciples eventually got there. Actually, I'm fairly certain they did, because here we are still celebrating the church. But it's a great practice for us to ask ourselves, when are we trying to go through the gate, and when are we just bumping against the fence? So with that, I think a nice little reminder of that is continuing with our Apostles' Creed. I'll bring it on up here for you.